It is Monday, September 29th, 2014, and right now we are going to review the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus. This is the iMore Show. Joining me this week, we have an all-star panel of guest collaborators, friends, and internet bon vivants. I will start at the left and work my way across. First, we have Ali Kazmucha. How are you, Ali?
I'm fabulous.
You are that lighting is incredible. Looks like you have a golden crown of awesome.
I know.
We also have making her triumphant return to the iMore Show, long ago panelist Georgia Dow. How are you, Georgia?
Hello. I'm like Uncle Fester. You bring me out for special occasions.
We also have Peter Cohen, broadcasting from his, what did you say, college radio lair?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Hi. Hello, everyone.
You have Pokemon with you today.
I do indeed. They are a counter to your Lego world behind you.
Nice. And joining us for the first of what we hope will be many, 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 many times, we have brand new to iMore, but a stranger to very few, Serenity Caldwell.
Hi, Rene. I don't have Legos, but I do have a tiny bobblehead Agent Coulson, which is pretty much all anybody could ever want, right?
Nice.
Epic. Oh, Coulson
and Montreal bagels.
Both of them excellent. So we are gathered here today, not for a normal show, but to review the iPhone 6. We've had the iPhone 6 and the iPhone bigger, I don't know, the giant cousin from Greenland for a while now. We've been looking at them. Let's sort of get some general views. We'll go around the room at first. Ali, what do you think about the iPhone being both big and bigger?
I like the regular big better than the bigger on a regular basis. But I find myself replacing my iPad Air with the 6 Plus a lot of the times, and I don't really know how I feel about that yet.
I've looked. It's like 1/3 of an it's like 1/3 of an iPad Mini when you hold it horizontally.
My arms don't get as tired. So I find it, I don't know, I've been using it a lot more. But when I leave the house, it's too big for me. It's awkward. I'm still going to stand by my stance that it's a phablet.
What about you, Georgia? You went all in on the iPhone 6 Plus.
I've been waiting for a larger phone forever. So like everyone was telling me, but you know, it's going to be too big, make sure that you check it out. I'm like, I've been waiting for this phone, like, go big or go home. So yes, I love the Plus. I love the larger phone as well, just the 6, but I happen to just absolutely adore the 6 Plus.
Peter, you're still happy with the 6?
Yeah, I just dropped it.
Drop it.
Wow. All right. Yeah, no, I'm still really happy with
that
the 6.
That was repressed anger towards the 6. So you can get
There's nothing repressed about my anger, dear. I still love the 6. I think it's a great size. It's the perfect size for me. Having said that, I have to say that I still have twinges of doubt that I got the right one and that I probably should have waited for the Plus, because the Plus is so unlike any other large format smartphone I've ever held. You know, it's light, it's well balanced, it feels good in your hand, it's got those rounded edges, and it's also running, you know, the mobile operating system that I would prefer to use, which is probably the most important feature of the thing. So, you know, on balance, though, I'm still very happy with the 6.
And Ren, we know unofficially which iPhone you went with, but officially, how did you choose, and are you happy with your choice?
This is an iPhone 6. It is actually white, which is the first white iPhone I've ever owned, which is kind of weird. I love it. I am very, very happy with my 6, primarily because when I tried to hold the 6 Plus, I couldn't actually do so. But I have very, very tiny palms, very large fingers. So when I held the 6 Plus, it was kind of like that, and I'm like, oh, I have no way to actually move my thumb around to navigate with it. That said, I agree with Peter in that I do think it's an incredibly well-built phone, and I think it's a really cool phone for certain people. Georgia, I don't know how you do it, but Godspeed. But there was no question in my mind when I got the 6. However, I did go for the extra storage because oh man, that's so much nicer. I thought my 32 gig was like roomy 2 years ago, but once you start going down the Apple beat and the iPhone app reviewing path, you need the 64 and the 128 gig storage options so badly.
Once you start recording Derby, forever it will control your destiny.
Pretty much. I like that you saw that I was starting to go down that path, but thanks for catching up on that.
So I personally bought an iPhone 6 Plus, and I got an iPhone 6 very kindly from Apple to review. So I've had the chance to try both of them. I spent 3 days just with the Plus, and then 3 days just with the 6. And I have decided that I would really like the iPhone 7 to have a little bit of Super Friends power, so I can say Siri in neck chalk, and it'll just grow from one to the other and then shrink back down, because they both have their alternatives, like their advantages. Using the iPhone 6, I feel like I'm still using an iPhone. It's like the linear successor of every iPhone I've ever used. But the iPhone 6 Plus, it's such a big screen, such great functionality that I find myself reaching for it whenever I want to actually do something. And I have the luxury of using both of these now, and I'm sure I'll be happy with the iPhone 6 Plus when I have to send the iPhone 6 back. But it's such a hard choice to make. Maybe we can break it down for people, and I'm going to throw this open. So the design, Apple, Peter said it is thinner and curvier than previous iPhones. It curves entirely over the front as well, so the bezel gestures are much easier to do. It's the thinnest iPhone. Both of them are actually thinner than last year's iPhone. It's actually lighter than the iPhone 4S. I mean, a lot of people say that Apple makes a phone too thin, that they should instead leave it thick and use the extra capacity for battery. But it's never really been about thinness. It's about weight. And they figured out quickly with the original iPad that people just couldn't hold it up for long periods of time. So they made the iPad 2 deliberately lighter, and the Air lighter again. And they have to do the same thing with iPhones, because I have other 6-inch phones. They are heavy. I mean, I worry about the sidewalk when I drop them. This is a little, like, I don't have Georgia-style guns, but I can still hold this up for a long period of time. Georgia, how are you finding it, just in terms of the weight and the design in general?
I don't notice anything at all in difference with the weight. It is heavier, but I don't really notice it because it's really exceptionally well balanced, and because of the curved edges, I find that it's very comfortable in my hand. And I also have like little tiny small child hands. I don't even have long fingers, but I find that it's really comfortable in my palm. Now, I do end up losing the ability to do one-handed things. So I think that it's really a difference between the portability of the phone, which the smaller 6 is better, versus the usability and real estate and the extra features that you get with the 6 Plus. So for me, I find that I've really adapted very quickly to it. The only thing that I can say that I still miss out on is one-handedness. Like, I can't one-handed type or text anyone. And that's a little bit of a bother, but
I'm worried about the balance, though. Like, it's not that I can't reach, but I also feel like I might drop it if I try too hard.
Well, I know that I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to try to reach what I can't. I'm going to wait, and odds are most of the time where I'd have to do something one-handed, I could just wait anyways, which would probably be the smartest thing to do in the first place. So I'm two-handed texting or using Siri, which is sad. You can all scoff. That was, yeah. It's a little bit sad to have to do.
Better on it, though. At least on the 6, comparing to the 5S. Do you guys notice that too? Siri's a lot faster.
Yeah, it's the streaming. Siri does streaming dictation now, which is phenomenal. And you can see it changing the words. Like, it'll do a bunch of words and then realize you meant something else and go back and change them by the time you get there.
Although you still get great dictation errors. I can't remember what I was actually trying to say this morning while I was driving. But it translated it to sleep stable snow. And sometimes you send a text and then Siri just mangles it so wonderfully that you're like, well, I could press cancel, or I could just press send and have that.
Let them think about that for a while.
I'm sure Egret has sent that exact text several times.
You know nothing, Jon Snow, about the sleep-stable snow.
Allie, how's the typing for you on the phones?
I think the first couple days I had them, in particular the 6, I felt like it was a little different for me. Like, I kept hitting the edges of the screen, and I think it's just because of the fact that the resolution is different on both of them because of the larger screen. So obviously, the first couple days, I think I felt more comfortable in apps that were scaled, because if that makes sense, I could see the keyboard better. Now I'm used to it. I didn't really feel like I had the issue on the Plus because it's bigger. But on the 6, I felt like I kept hitting the sides of the screen instead of like a P key or on the edges because I'm just used to how they were spaced before. But I think after about a day or two, it didn't really bother me anymore. And now I'm typing as fast as I was on my 5S.
You mean because that was so much closer to the 5S that your muscle memory just kind of wanted to go to the exact same place without you thinking because you could do it one-handed?
it doesn't feel any different in my hand. The 6 doesn't.
Right.
I mean, when I hold one and the other, I mean, you can tell if you put your fingers up to the side because it's thicker, the 5S is, but it literally doesn't feel any different in my hand than my 5S did. So I feel like I tried to treat the keyboard that way, and since the resolution's different, I was tapping keys that I didn't mean to tap because they're closer together now.
You think it's fair to say that Apple has abandoned the small screen size form factor? Like they were 3.5, then it went to 4. Palm notoriously put out a Veer once that you could stack 9 deep on a normal-sized iPhone. Are they just reflecting where our tastes are going, or are they leaving behind part of the market as they try to embrace a new part?
Well, I don't necessarily know that they're leaving it behind because there are plenty of 4-inch iPhones still available for sale. They just may not be the latest and greatest. And as we've seen from previous years, there are plenty of people who still want to buy last year's iPhone. And in fact, a bunch of my friends who are still on 4Ss and 5s, when Apple's new announcement came, it was like, oh, well, the 6 is cool and all, but yes, I can finally buy an iPhone 5S and it won't be so expensive. So I really do think that, for the people who want the 4-inch phones, at least for now, there's still a path. Who knows if that path will close off as Apple, releases the next greatest thing next year and shunts everything down, whether we'll see the 4-inch completely disappear. But I think for right now, they're kind of like hedging their bets and being like, well, 5S is still a pretty good phone. Let's see how many people, and if that 4-inch screen is really holding people back from upgrading. 10 million iPhones sold though kind of tells me that maybe not so much.
What do we think, Ali? What do you think about the new design? Instead of we used to have a big black patch on the back of the original iPhone, then we had complete plastic backs, then we had the RF windows on the iPhone 5 and 5S. Now we have these thin lines, which I know some people don't like the look of, especially on the gold phone because white is such a contrast to gold. But it's structurally, I mean, it looks like it's closer to being a full piece of aluminum than ever before.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, they don't bother me personally. I do feel like they stand out a lot more on the gold than they do. If I'm looking at my slate one, I don't understand why they could make the slate lines darker like gray and why they maybe couldn't make them not stand out and be so pronounced on the gold phone. But they don't really bother me enough to really complain about it. I kind of liked the two-tone panels on the 5S. I think I was one of the few people that actually liked that. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of wouldn't have minded to see them do panels again, but I'm sure that makes it a little thicker. So I don't know. I don't mind either one, I guess. I'm not picky.
I think it kind of reminds me, it's a little Tron-esque now. It's got the little line. It's kind of doing, I like it, just make it glow. I'm good. We're good then.
It looks like design.
Glow mods.
Yeah, I mean, it does definitely stand out more on the gold than it does on the other one, and you can choose to look at that. Like, you can choose to look at these as ugly craters along the beautiful contours of your iPhone, or it could be like piping, like on a Boba Fett or C-3PO outfit, and just add to the depth and the overall look. I don't mind them at all. The gold does seem slightly different gold. Do you strike that too, Ali? Is it a different gold to you?
Yeah, it feels like it's a little different to me than the shade of the 5S. One of my friends has a gold 5S, and I noticed mine it's a little bit more dramatic than what the 5S was it was more dampened, I guess, if that makes sense. Like
it's a darker gold.
Yeah, well, and under certain lights, you couldn't really tell the difference between the silver and the gold unless you held it in the right light, because if the light was yellowish, you didn't really know. This one I feel like it's a little bit more pronounced. It's a little more yellow, I think. So I like it, but it's different.
Yeah, it reminds me more of a rose type gold. And in fact, I've been a staunch anti-white phone, anti-gold phone for pretty much my entire iPhone career, and I was pretty sure that I was getting the black iPhone 6, and then a friend of mine was playing around with one of these in the demo unit, and I was like, oh, actually, that color gold is nice. And then I went down the road of, well, if I got a gold phone, I could call it C-3PO, and then that just...
See, Peter and Ali gave me nothing but misery last year about getting a gold phone, and now Ali is converted, Serenity is converted. Peter is still stewing in his hate, lonely.
So he's shaking his head at you now, too.
Forever.
Space gray for life, baby. Actually, it's funny because we work with trickle-down economics in my house. My wife retired her iPhone 5 and got my 5S when I upgraded to the 6. And I've been playing around with the 5 for the last few days, and I really miss the black on the 5.
Right. Yeah.
Space gray is okay, but I like black better. It's just it's a better color. I just
But it chips and scratches, Peter.
Yeah, it does. But you know what? That's what these are for. They're called cases. They keep your iPhone looking pretty.
But then why do you care what color it is? If you're
Johnny, I've made my iPhone look pretty.
Why do I care what color it is, Ellie? Because I know what damn color is underneath the case.
It's for when he undresses his iPhone himself.
For his eyes and his eyes alone.
I do, and it's a
very
personal thing between me and
personal
my
moment.
iPhone.
I hear you. I hear you, Peter. I totally get it. I actually also am always buying the black phone. I was a little bit disappointed with how light the space gray really was, because I didn't expect it to be that light. Like, truly, it's more like a silver phone. I'm not going to call it that, but it's like a dark silver on my phone. And I was also hoping, even if I would nick it up, you're not going to nick it up as much because it's rounded corners, so you're not going to be knocking it against things as much. I'm figuring I could have had a go at it, but I'll deal with it for now.
There's a big difference. Like, I have a 5 sitting here, a space gray 5S, and a space gray 6 Plus. And every year they've gotten lighter, progressively lighter and lighter.
Can you hold them up, Allie?
So here is the 5 to the 5S.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a proper black color on the 5.
It's a proper black color.
And here's the 6 Plus. So I don't know if you can. There's a difference. I remember pulling my 6 Plus out of the box when I got it and thinking, wow, the back of this phone kind of looks more silver than it does.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to, I mean, black is the hardest color to anodize, and not only that, it takes the longest. So producing however many million units they produced that fast.
Yeah. Beauty takes effort, damn it.
Yeah, this doesn't make itself, right, Peter?
Only Ive does that.
So moving from Goldgate, as I'm guessing Peter's going to call it in his next column, to Benghazi. Yeah, you're getting credited with coining Benghazi. I don't know if you actually did or not, but you're getting a lot of credit for it.
I heard it from Eli Hodap over at Touch Arcade first. I can't claim credit for it.
All right, fair enough.
Fair.
So it turns out that the way Apple has built the iPhone, there's a bolt that's right. It ends right where the volume controls start. Because it's one piece of aluminum, it's got cutouts there. So if you apply force in that specific direction, it is easier to compromise the structural integrity of the aluminum. Now, some people say they've done this in their pocket. Some people have put incredible amounts of force behind bending them into cheese bagels on YouTube videos. Consumer Reports, who I've not been a fan of based on their previous sensationalism about the iPhone, decided this time to do some tests where they showed that it doesn't really bend any worse than the other phone, but other people are saying they're not trying the specific weak spot that exists on the iPhone. For me, all I can say is that I've had an iPhone 6 Plus in my pockets of holding, as Peter calls them, going on a week now. And actually over a week now, and I've been sitting down with them. I've been, doing everything I possibly can with this phone in my pocket, and it's fine. Like, it is as absolutely straight as the day it left the factory.
Front or back pocket?
Mm-hmm.
Front pocket, because I'm not an animal.
I carry my Plus in my back pocket, and it's not bent.
Oh, even better. You're not an animal either.
You see, this entire Bengate makes me feel bad, because I'm thinking, first, he bent it with his hands, which is impressive, but it's your hands. Like, really, what I would be really impressed is if he bent it with his butt. Like, I'm thinking, what kind of butts of steel do these people have? And I'm thinking to myself, I should be doing some more squats or something, because, putting it in my back pocket, it's like a soft pillow. Like, it's the safest, place to put my phone. There is no bending that's going to be happening with my phone.
Unless you sit on concrete. Don't sit on concrete with your phone in your pocket.
It's still a soft pillow. It's a soft pillow to keep my phone safe. It's the safest spot to keep my phone, and it makes me feel a little bit bad as a person. Like, if you can bend your phone in your skinny jeans on your own, my hat's off to you. Like, show me your workout routine, because that's impressive. But, until you're doing that, I'm figuring most of us are relatively safe with our phones in our pocket.
Yeah, I read your Not Safe for Work piece this week, Peter, and you basically told people that this is, most people most of the time don't have to worry about this, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And, at the risk of going into my Not Safe for Work rant, people have asked me if I can bend my iPhone, or if I have tried to bend my iPhone, and my answer is no, because I'm not a stupid asshole. I put it in a case. I'm tired of hearing about this. This is a ridiculous thing. And yeah, I've seen the videos. I've seen people pushing on them very hard to do it. Guess what? Things bend. Things break. It's made of aluminium. It's not made of adamantium, because adamantium is an imaginary metal that doesn't actually exist in the world.
I think you feel strongly about that, Peter.
Just a little bit.
I might be wrong.
I do, and look, bending phones is nothing new. Bending phones goes back with the iPhone to at least the 4. And it's not unique to Apple either. Lots of Android phones and Windows phones have been bent over the years by people who are careless with them. But look, you've got a device that costs you at least $650. Do your part to take care of the thing, and don't bend it. Don't let it get bent.
And if you just look at the regular physics to it, like, yes, having a square phone, it doesn't feel as nice in your hand, but yes, it's going to be more protected from bending because it's got the flat edges sides. With having a rounded phone, you lose a little bit, you increase a little bit of its bendability, but you end up with a phone that just feels so much nicer in your palm, and I would take that trade up any day.
This phone is bent. I fixed these for years, and within, I don't know, a week of the iPhone 5 coming out, I had 3 people come in that dropped their phone and it bent by the volume rockers. So that's nothing new. That's a weak spot. There's no loom out.
Yes, it has a cutout there. Right.
Huh?
Yeah, it makes total sense. It has a cutout.
That's where it's bending.
It's not going to be as
and
strong.
Bigger sticks are easier to snap.
But these phones are not made for playing Angry Birds against. Like, these are not fortresses. These are phones that you want to use.
Almost as angry as Peter.
No, and so it makes sense that, it's like before it was breakable. Like, I'm just happy that the backside of my phone is not in glass. So really, out of both of them, I could have dropped it anywhere. This phone, actually, with the rounded corners, is, I've seen, less breakable. I know you could break it, so don't send me all your tweets of people that have broken their phones. You can, but having the rounded corners, you end up having it be a little bit less. Like, there's more chance that instead of my butt bending my phone, there's more chance that I'm going to drop it. So I'm happy with the trade-off.
Well, in metal bends, I mean, like I said this on the last podcast, they actually make custom tools that I owned that are actually for bending corners out of iPads and phones. So it's not new. They've been out since the iPad 2. I can reshape the aluminum on a phone with sandpaper. So it's not, it's not new. You can sit there and file it down if you really want to. It's metal. It's aluminum.
It's aluminum.
It's aluminum.
Allie is a metal bender.
Yes.
It's like you're from the Legend of Korra or something. That's awesome. Here's the thing, right? Apple could certainly engineer a phone that wouldn't bend, but you know what? It would suck. It would be like we had, a plastic Android phone in our pocket. You want your things to be beautiful. You want Apple to design them well. There are trade-offs to anything. And one of the trade-offs...
$2,000.
Right, exactly.
You want a plastic iPhone, you go buy this.
Right, exactly. One of the trade-offs...
Experience plastic.
Right. One of the trade-offs for having a beautiful, well-engineered piece of equipment in your pocket with more, computing power than the entire world had in the early 70s is, that you have to take care of it a little. And I don't think it's a big stretch for people to put these in protective cases. Look, the store I work in, we sell life-proof cases a day in and day out every day of the week. Why? Because they offer 360 degrees of protection for the phones. Because you get your phone wet, it doesn't get ruined. You get your phone muddy, it doesn't get ruined. You get your phone dirty, it doesn't get ruined. People buy these, they use them. Why? Because they want to use their phones outside. And it's worth the investment of spending an extra $80 for really protective case if you've got an outdoor lifestyle or if you're rough with your stuff. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that if you don't, your phone is going to get scratched and dinged and dented. I had my iPhone 5S for about a week when I realized one day at work that I had my car keys in the same pocket as my iPhone. And I pulled it out, and sure enough, there was about a 3/4 of an inch long scratch on the screen. That screen scratch has been there ever since to remind me not to put my damn keys in the same pocket as my phone.
You're a monster, Peter.
I know. I was careless. It was dumb. I shouldn't have done it. But just think of how much worse it would be if the iPhone still had a plastic screen like it did when it was a prototype and it was in Steve Jobs' pocket and got all scratched up with his keys.
I just want to point out, I don't want to get too rust and coal on this, but some people might say we're apologists. I prefer to think of us as realists. These are the phones. If you want these phones, if they appeal to you, you will have to take care of them. You have to take care that you don't scratch them, that you don't drop them and shatter the glass, that you don't bend them by what Georgia is terming your Olympic level buttocks.
Now, I am a little irritated that they didn't at least make it water resistant. At this point in time, I don't really see that there's a reason they can't do that.
Well, it's gotten pretty easy from a technical standpoint to water.
Yeah. Well, and the Thunderbolt or the Lightning port, from my understanding, can be closed off. So, you know, if Samsung can do it, I would think that Apple can.
I did Ice Bucket challenge my iPhone 5 and it's still working perfectly. So they're not terrible. They're just not. They can't go swimming with you.
I want to be able to put my phone in the sink, Rene, just for the novelty of being able to do that.
It's just the acoustics sound better when I play Beats music there. So
Exactly.
I have dropped
my
my
phone. I did
phone.
with the S5. I put it under the sink because
All right, so I want to keep us moving a little bit because we have a lot still to cover. So the camera, I am floored with the camera, not just in the iPhone 6 Plus, but the iPhone 6 as well. I was out shooting autumn leaves, and they looked like fire dragons to me.
yeah, no, the thing that really impresses me the most about the iPhone 6's camera, the slow-mo aside, which we can get into, the red coloration and the definition of oranges, reds, and yellows with the CMOS sensor on the 6. I don't know what hoodoo magic they pulled off, but I've never seen those kind of colors from a mobile camera before.
And those are hard, right? People who aren't used to photography, red is the hardest color to get right.
Red is notoriously difficult, and even so much more so for tiny CMOS sensors, because you need the bigger the sensor, obviously, the better quality, the more light that's coming in, the more light that can be exposed onto the digital, you know, we're thinking like old school film terms. And the more light you get, the better your colors are going to be. Without, you know, this is a tiny lens and an even tinier sensor. Like I haven't broken apart a phone, but Allie, I mean, you've taken apart these phones before. Like, how big is the sensors? Like this?
It's tiny. Did they say what the sensor size is this time around?
I don't think they did, but I'm sure it's on iFixit.
Yeah, it's
Knowing that.
I didn't find it yet.
The thing that interests me is Allie's busy doing our photo shootout. She's putting an iPhone against an M8 and against the Galaxy S5. And one of the biggest complaints we get is that Apple didn't increase the megapixel size. And I think there's still a lot of confusion about megapixels.
Megapixel myths.
Yeah, well, the number is quantity. It's not quality. You can take a sensor and divide it into as many megapixels as you want, but those pixels will be tiny and they'll produce worse images. The iPhone has 8 megapixels, but Apple actually increased the size of the sensor, so they're 1.5 microns now. And Allie, you're comparing that to a 1.1 micron Galaxy S5. How's that going?
Without ruining, I'm doing 100% crops this time around, so people can actually see the difference when you're at 100% of what Samsung or HTC or Apple is giving you resolution. And without naming who's at fault for this, there's no point in you making a phone that high resolution if it looks like crap at that resolution. Mm-hmm. So I would rather have a better sensor and better quality pixels than you give me a high resolution. I think a lot of the times it's marketing. People see, oh, this phone has
20 megapixels.
No, my Nikon that I shoot all the photography with for iMore has 12 megapixels. I have no desire to go. I would rather put the money in glass behind it because that's what's going to make the difference. And I don't think people are understanding its quality, not quantity.
If you're shooting posters or billboards, you want megapixels. If you're shooting normal human photography, you want the quality of like the microns, you want the aperture, you want a lot of other elements.
Yeah, you want the...
A couple of years ago, when he was still writing for the New York Times, David Pogue did a great expose on this, and he printed up poster-sized photos that he had taken with different cameras, and it proved that people who were looking at them, just, you know, maybe not photography experts, but just normal people looking at these images couldn't differentiate a really high megapixel image from a regular one. And I don't remember exactly what the megapixel count was, but you're absolutely right. It's quality over quantity.
Yeah, with megapixels, for me, I always try and explain it to my friends as like, it's like using a digital zoom on your camera, where it's like the majority of the time you want to shoot full format, and then, you know, if you really want to zoom, then great for you. But you want, yeah, exactly. You either get closer or take the full photo and then crop accordingly. But yeah, but using a digital zoom, really or having a giant megapixel camera great, you have a big blown up image that just looks like a mosaic. You know, it looks like Picasso went and tried to paint your image, but you can't actually tell what's going on there.
Yeah, your image is as good as the light it pulls in, and tiny microns pull in tiny amounts of light. One of the things that I find really good, and I don't know if you've tried this too much, George, I think you mentioned this the other day, is Apple's using focus pixels, which you typically find on higher end cameras like DSLRs. So you have pairs of pixels. Traditional cameras use contrast to focus, so they'll zoom in, they'll overzoom, underzoom, sorry, overfocus, underfocus until they get it right. With focus pixels, it basically does, what's the right word I'm looking for? Phase focusing. So it finds that the image is in phase and then takes it. And I don't know if we're poisoning Georgia with my word. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but for me, the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus, the focus is instant. Like I never see the square anymore. It just locks on target and it moves target quickly.
I keep looking for that square and I don't see it, and then I forget I don't need it.
The autofocus is incredible on the 6. Not just with video, although the focus pixel implementation on video or continuous autofocus, I did not really realize how seamless it was until I was deliberately trying to test it last week, where I was actually going like into macro mode to being like, all right, I'm gonna go here, then out, then in, then out, and I went quickly too, and I'd like move the phone around and do crazy things with it, and no matter, I would say it was like 85 to 95% successful of getting not only perfect focus, but perfect focus of the thing I wanted, which is even more impressive because sometimes the thing I wanted in focus was not in the center of the screen. It was in a quarter of the screen. So not only is the phone accurately changing focus, but it's sensing what part of the image that you actually want to lock onto, which is incredibly intelligent design behind the focus pixels and all of that.
Right, and since I have like kids and a dog, I'm always trying to take pictures of things that are moving in and out and they're not even close to the screen when I have to do it. And it's wonderful because it's so relaxing. I actually usually would have to constantly be tapping the screen and I want to focus in and I'm like stand further, get closer. This you can, like the dog runs in, the dog runs out, the child comes in, the child comes out, and you can always take a great photo with your phone, which is so nice. I think the parents are going to, many people won't understand what a great technology it is, but if ever you've taken photos before and now, you're going to notice a huge wave of difference.
So Ali, you shot head-to-head with the different cameras. One of the big differences is the iPhone 6 Plus has optical image stabilization, so it'll actually float the lens. So the iPhone 6 has automatic image stabilization. It uses software to try to stabilize the image, but the iPhone 6 Plus can actually keep the lens steady, keep the aperture open, suck in more light, and get better low light. But is that just a technical term, or did you actually see it in action in your tests?
You know, there were a couple circumstances, and I really didn't, unless you're looking side by side, my conclusion was don't ever base a purchasing decision between a 6 and a 6 Plus on optical image stabilization, because Apple has such great software behind both cameras. It does a great job compensating. Now, if I'm looking at EXIF data from the photos, I can see that, you know, the iPhone 6 Plus might have only had to bring it up to a 200 ISO where the 6 used an 800. So you're going to notice grain, but unless they're next to each other and you're looking at, again, 100% crop, it's not noticeable enough that at the end of the day, you're not going to be happy with either image. So video, I did notice a difference with the 6 Plus, the lens floating. I was purposely trying to basically jump up and down and get shake out of either one of the lenses. And the 6 did a decent job stabilizing that, but the 6 Plus, you could noticeably tell side by side it did a better job. But again, I don't think it's anything worth basing a decision off of. You'd be better off basing a buying decision off of how the phones feel in your hand and as an overall package than just, I need the optical image stabilization. So I'm going to buy this phone, because you're not going to notice enough of a difference to basically give and take somewhere else just for that.
And I noticed, Ren, you did a lot of awesome video tests. You took it to the roller derby with you, and you had the slow-mo, and you had the stabilized video, and it looked tremendous.
Yeah, slow motion has been like a pet project of mine since the 5S. In fact, one of the reasons why I got it was like, oh, 204 or 120 frames per second. This is really cool. And I went and shot actually some early video, I think, which might also be on my YouTube channel of last year. The impressive thing about the 6 and slow motion is they've improved light retention. I mean, obviously, when you're shooting more frames in a single second, it means that the camera needs more light to capture it properly. So if you're trying to shoot anything slow motion in a dark area, you're going to lose a lot of the quality that you might get in a broadly lit, perfectly captured environment. My first test with this thing was going into our warehouse, which is about the darkest place you can find, even in daylight. Like broad daylight, we had the lights off. We just had like lights coming through the windows, which actually also created like HDR issues. And I just went and shot a bunch of things. And normally I shoot this stuff not even, like I shoot it on my roller skates to provide like a kind of steady cam environment. But because we were trying to do this so quickly, I'm just like, you know what? We're just gonna do it live. I'm gonna get into like good derby stance and like tighten my core and just try and hold this steady while I'm running around after my friend Haley, who's trying to like do laps and crazy stuff. And there are a couple things. One, the low light sensitivity for slow motion is incredible. It's like leaps and bounds ahead of the 5S, and I'd love to do tests at some point in the future directly comparing those cameras. But even at 240 frames per second, it's better than the 120 frames per second low light capture on the 5S. And if you drop it down to 120 frames per second, I think you get an extra 2 full stops of light, which is really impressive. Don't quote me on that, but
did you notice with video on your 5S that the minute you'd switch from photo to any kind of video mode, it was incredibly dark. Like there was a noticeable difference, and I don't feel like it's a lot more subtle of a change with the 6. So the new sensor is making a difference, and whether it's the 6 or the 6 Plus as far as light goes, even if it's f2.2 is the maximum aperture now, but the sensor is making a difference.
Yeah, it's really, really personally impressive to me. The only time where I saw a major difference between photo and video mode, or even 240 frames versus 120 frames, is I shot some video of our roller derby team in the evening at that fort. And in the evening, we've got like really terrible fluorescent lights that maybe give you like a little bit of light on the top of people's faces, but by the time if you're trying to like shoot their wheels, it's just a blend of gray. And the photo mode actually looks great, but as soon as you swap to video, it gets a little bit darker. And then if I turned it to 240 frames per second in that really dark environment, it was almost unreadable. I could probably bump some contrast up in post, but switching over to 120 frames per second, it was almost as well lit as when I shot 240 frames during the afternoon. So there's definitely light improvements, as you were saying, and then also the stability. The auto stabilization, the digital stabilization, they were calling it, I think, cinematic stabilization. Yep. That I have been very, very impressed by, given that the two videos that I have shot, like utilizing and showing off slow motion. One was, again, me just running around in cowboy boots, not even like good shoes for trying to pretend to be a Steadicam in. I was running around trying to follow somebody going about 10, 15 miles an hour on skates. And then the other video I shot was on a bike path that was very bumpy. And you look at those two videos, and some of those look smooth enough that if I hadn't told anybody, oh, I was in my boots or I was on skates on a bumpy bike path, they'd be like, oh, that looks like you were shooting with a Steadicam. So I'm very impressed with video. I'm really excited to shoot more.
Peter, have you had a chance to try the new low light abilities on your concert stages yet?
Yeah, actually, I went to a couple of shows over the weekend in Boston, and I was pretty impressed with how both of them came out. You know, the 5S was always kind of hit or miss for me, and it was certainly the best iPhone that I ever shot pictures with at shows. But it was still kind of hit or miss with me, especially when you get really hot stage lights, but the rest of the environment is really dark. It does some funny white balancing stuff, and autofocus got really kind of screwy. iPhone 6 was much more consistent, and I was able to grab some much higher quality images than I have in the past, so I was really happy with that. Looking forward to putting it more through its paces, actually.
Yeah, there's so much. We're not going to have time to talk about everything. We're still working on our iPhone 6 review, and more will be in there. But there's just so much technology, like those focus pixels. The screen, I forgot to mention, it now has, instead of using regular layouts for the pixels, it now slants the pixels so that it has better viewing angle, because large screens are better to share with people. So it gives you better color and better contrast if people are looking over your shoulder trying to share the screen with you. It's got a new polarizer, so if you're wearing polarized sunglasses, the screen doesn't disappear if the two filters happen to align. There's a lot of little things, both in the display and in the camera, that sort of speak to me about what Apple's all about, and that is, they have introduced manual camera controls now, so if you are a photographer and you have a lot of setup time, you can spend that time and get really fantastic. You can do long exposures, you can do anything you want to do. But if you just want those everyday photos, like Georgia mentioned, take a picture of your kid or your dog. Ali's whole Instagram feed is filled up with Shiba pictures. Or your Peter, you want to get a stage. It just lets you take out the camera and shoot. And for most people, most of the time, it does all the hard work and just gives you great photos. And that, I think, the value is not necessarily the megapixel count, not whose name is on the lens, not that it's doing any auto awesome processing on the server, but just that from chipset to glass, it's giving you a pipeline that you press that button, and most of the time you get something usable, and I think that's what we want from our memories.
I think so. I would agree with that.
I would too, and for those of us who want to take it a step further, I mean, Apple's camera app is designed exactly for what you're talking about, Rene. Capturing those memories the way that we envision them in our mind. But there are some really, really fantastic camera apps that you can download that have been re-engineered and optimized for iOS 8, that when you put them on a 6 or 6 Plus, you can take some spectacular photos with if you know what you're doing.
Can we plug Manual? Because Manual is really fun. I've been testing that for the last couple days, and yeah.
Yeah, I posted a roundup of the best manual camera apps, I believe, so we can link to that. I spent a day going through and finding those and tinkering with them, and like Rene said, taking pictures of a dog.
Camera Plus is another one that's got some fantastic stuff too.
Very much.
What is it about Manual that you like so much, Serenity?
For me, it was just a really good example of what the new APIs can actually do, and I found myself specifically, I like being able to manually control the fake ISO, because it's like film speed doesn't exist. It's a digital product. But being able to personally control grain and control contrast so that I can shoot a darker picture that I can then boost later if I want. It's like shooting RAW with a bigger camera, with a DSLR, where it's like I would prefer to be able to make more of those edits and like choose personally what amount of light that I'd like to light in. And Manual just offers a really nice setup for just tweaking all
really
the various
easy
things.
To use. I like that you can just swipe, and that to me was important, because we apparently live in a bat cave where we don't have a lot of overhead lighting. So when there's no basically light coming in, like the sliding glass doors, there's no light. So I found myself launching Manual, like if I'm taking a photo indoors, because I don't want the grain, and I know my default camera app is going to compensate with ISO. I would rather take a picture that's a little underexposed and then open it in Lightroom or Photoshop Touch on my phone and then edit it and make it how I want it.
Exactly.
So it's nice that we have those options now, because you can't go backwards. If a photo gets snapped with a high ISO, you can't take that away without sacrificing something else.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's so important, Ali, like when you do what do the different phones and what does it mean? Because I think that a lot of people really don't understand. I think that we talk about megapixels and people just really don't understand what the difference and what the phone really gives to it. And when we take a look at like side by sides, I think it makes a huge difference. People say, well, does this actually matter to me? Is it something that's going to be important to me or not? Something that I'm going to be able to use? Because in the end, people think that bigger numbers mean better things, and often they really don't.
So speaking of...
Go ahead, Rene.
I was going to say, I want to just move quickly into the selfie, because I saw Ali posted some of her selfies. We have some of Georgia's for the review. The front-facing camera got some boost too. It now does one-shot HDR, which just sounds like wizardry to me.
Well, you don't even see it. You don't even, like, you know, with the back-facing camera, when you have HDR auto on, you'll see the little HDR pop up. The front-facing camera, I tried for ages to be like, all right, where's this HDR? No, it's just, it automatically compensates, and it looks good, despite it being, what, I think a 0.9 megapixel sensor in the front camera. They're not very big photos, but they've gotten so much clearer, and the light differentiation, yeah, absolutely.
I noticed I did a selfie section this time because Renee always yells at me when I don't do it. So I did one this time.
Dogs.
Yeah. So I did it with people, with myself and other people. So I took some outdoors intentionally because the first thing I noticed was a lot of the other cameras tend to blow out light behind you. So if I had objects behind me, it overexposed them. And the 6 seemed to do, the HDR on the front-facing camera did a really nice job of not doing that. So, and it didn't sacrifice any clarity in the image. It seems to do that.
One of my favorite front-facing photos that I took when I was testing the phone last weekend was actually, again, in our very dark warehouse where I was almost completely backlit by a window. And not only did it not completely blow out the backlighting, but it actually got, like, nice defined light on me rather than just, like, dark and then super light. It was really impressive.
And selfies are not something you're going to blow up to an 8x10. So
no,
they don't.
No, you really don't want to do that. You want to look good, which that's it.
No one wants to see your
look good. You're like,
smaller the better.
I love this phone.
Exactly.
I want the diffused glow. The selfie picture, just make it a diffused glow.
Yeah.
Something too bright. You really don't want to see that. There's some things you don't want to hide down.
Selfies were made to be tweaked and Instagram filtered.
Right.
The motion on the front-facing camera, I was actually sort of wowed by, because I was taking, when I took they have, of course, new burst mode for the front-facing camera, and I was hanging out with my friend's cat, and I took a 4-up where I just held the phone in front, and I just tapped on the button and held it. I'm like, all right, cat, and just like pet her and did a couple of different things. And she's in focus. She's in focus like 70% of those bursts.
How did the cat look?
A lot of blurry sheet shelf selfies from my iPhone 5S, because you do that, you go to do that, and you switch it around, and they turn their head, and lots of blurs.
Yeah. Lots of blurs. Yeah, it was pretty impressive for me.
Mm-hmm.
So we also have an Apple A8 chipset and an M8 coprocessor. The A7, Apple actually went to 64-bit faster than Qualcomm, faster than Samsung. It was a really nice chipset. It gave them more registers. It gave them a cleaner instruction set with ARM v8. Now it's the second generation Swift CPU. They're using still an Imagination Power VR GPU quad core, dual core for the CPU. Those are a lot of numbers, and the performance, it's not a magnificent boost like in previous generations. It's 25% for general computing, 50% for graphics. But there's a couple of things that are really interesting. One is that they got 2 billion transistors in a package that I think was 13% smaller than the 1 billion last year. That's because they went to a 20 nanometer manufacturing process. But that translates into 50% less power output. And one of the things I'm not sure is well understood is that a battery gives you power, but it's a giant insulator. And that means that it keeps in the heat, and you have to downclock your chips. And also, it means the power gets expended. This gives us 50% more battery efficiency, so they can run the chip faster for longer, so Peter can play his metal games for as long as he can hold that goat's head high. It's a fairly long time. Peter's a strong guy. But also...
one-handed, especially because I'm using a 6, not a 6 Plus.
That's true.
Oh.
But also, you get as good, if not better, you get slightly better battery life with the iPhone 6, even though it has a bigger screen and it's thinner, and much better battery life with the iPhone 6 Plus, even though it's still thinner and has a much better screen. And this, again, seems to me like crazy magic stuff. But I tested it, and in my test, I used to deplete an iPhone by the end of the day. It'd get around 11 o'clock, midnight, I have to plug it in. Now I get maybe an extra hour out of the 6, but the 6 Plus has like 40% left at the end of the day. It's ludicrous.
My biggest, the thing that wowed me about this phone was leaving it on the nightstand, forgetting to charge it after the end of the day, and having 30% battery in the morning.
That was not even a thought with the 5S.
With any of the previous phones. It's like I used it a fair amount the previous day, left it on the table. Not only did it not deplete during the night, but it just, mind blown.
I used turn-by-turn navigation on a trip yesterday and didn't plug in my phone, and I still had a phone when I got there.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
I,
No,
I,
this
I,
Plus.
I'm notorious for living dangerously and always having my phone almost dead at
Always
all
in the
points.
red.
Almost always. And it's so funny. Like I carry a charger with me, but often I can't charge it. So I'm I'm on 10%, 9% all the time. And I have not had that happen once as of yet, and I have not changed my charging abilities, and I'm constantly using the phone. I'm using slow-mo, I'm watching videos, I'm playing games because the screen estate is just so fabulous to play games on with this phone. And no, I've never had it yet in the red until like the end of the day when I'm home already and everything's fine. So
One other aspect to this as well, if you are using apps that are very CPU intensive or very GPU intensive, I've noticed anyway that the 6 runs cooler than the 5S did. The 5S
it
would...
really does. You're absolutely right, Peter. I used to have my 5S would almost like cook in my pocket. Like if I put an egg on top of it, it might have actually been like over easy by the end of it. I haven't had that happen once. I've found that the phone is exceptionally cool, even if I'm running like navigation or something else that's really CPU intensive. That's an amazing point, yeah.
Last night was the first time I got mine to actually heat up. I had it
What
plugged in.
did you do?
You know what? That's the thing. I don't know what I did because I was just on Tweetbot and my phone was
You were
plugged
tweeting
in.
like crazy.
I was tweeting so much.
Tweet overload.
I
She was
broke Twitter.
tweeting until there was smoke
But-
coming out of the phone.
Only on this side, right by the power off button, where my hand sits, I felt it start to get warm. And then it was plugged in. I quit everything from the multitasker and rebooted it, and it was fine. So I almost feel like something got stuck in the memory or something.
Rogue process.
Yeah, something was going on that caused it, because closing everything and rebooting it and just using it how I was fixed it, and then I was still using it, and it cooled down. So
I've had that in low radio signals. Like I was in a place yesterday in post-apocalyptic Laval, Quebec, and it couldn't get a signal, and the phone just got hotter and hotter as the radio screamed more and more.
you always complain about that every time you're in America.
Well, America's roaming. It's different. Roaming is never as efficient as native networking is.
Yeah, you're always pulling.
It's bananas. They need to fix that. Just to wrap us up, let's go around the room and maybe get our pros, our cons, and our sort of bottom line. And again, I'll start with Allie because she's on my left.
I always have to go first. Let's see. Pros. I'm really happy with the camera so far. Battery life is a huge improvement. I spend most of my day behind a desk, so I think I noticed the difference when I have a girlfriend who bought a Plus, and she's a realtor, and every day by 2 or 3 p.m. she's at 18% on her 5S because she's on the phone, she's having people sign contracts, she's unlocking houses with her e-key on her phone, she's using 80 billion Bluetooth devices. Her phone had more battery life than mine did. At the end of the day, the first full day we used it, she had 55% left at 11 p.m. and I had 30. So, and she hadn't plugged in at all. So that's, I think, where I knew there's a huge difference in power consumption there. So that's a big plus either way, even though it's not a problem for me because I'm behind a desk. It won't be for people it shouldn't be a problem for people anymore that can't be behind a desk. Other than that, I don't really think I have any cons at this point, other than I feel like I'm going to drop the Plus and I can't use it one-handed. But other than that, I don't think I have any more.
So bottom line?
Buy it.
What about you, Georgia?
I love the Plus. I think that it's amazing. I love the fact that it has the rounded screen. I love the extra real estate. I love the fact that watching movies, playing games on the Plus is fabulous. I have not had to do this at all, which is amazing. I'm not pinching to zoom. On the down points for the Plus, you truly cannot use it easily one-handed for texting. You can use Siri for it. If you like to carry your phone around in your pocket, that's probably not going to happen, but hey, this could start the new line of Merces that are going to be available for men.
Hey, European!
And a funny one is that I feel much more watched. Like, I'm much more careful about what I'm surfing on the web because with the larger screen, everyone else can read what I'm doing. So, your mom is going to be reading all of your text messages. I work as a psychotherapist, so my text messages are private, and so that's a little bit more difficult because the screen is so big and beautiful, but I guess out of everything, that's not too bad. And the one-handed texting, I'm so sad about that. That's the only thing that I could say, if you get a little tiny hand thing that I can hold and I can still text one-handed, it would be perfect for me.
Usually your bottom line?
I love the Plus.
Nice. Peter?
Pros, it's faster, it's sleeker, it's bigger, it's all around better than the phones that have come before it. I love the camera on the 6. I love I also love reachability. We haven't talked too much about reachability, but there's been some controversy about whether or not it's a good feature, and I think it's very useful for bringing things that are at the top of the screen closer to you. So that's nice too.
That's when you tap the Touch ID sensor and it brings the whole interface down.
Right. You just simply double tap on the Touch ID center or the Touch ID sensor, and it brings the whole screen, the top of the screen, closer to so you can touch it. That stuff is great. Cons, I can't really think of a lot right off the top of my head outside of the fact that every time I haul it out of my pocket and somebody sees what it is, they want to touch it.
Oh, no.
Overall, yeah, thumbs up, definitely. Awesome iPhone. Having said that, the iPhone 6 certainly isn't for everyone. If you like a smaller screen, the iPhone 5S is more affordable than ever before. You should go out and get one if you're using an older phone and don't necessarily want to have to, rebuy cases and other stuff that you've gotten to fit your iPhone 5. But for everyone else, for everybody who's looking for the latest and greatest thing, I have no compunction whatsoever about recommending it.
Ren?
This is the best iPhone I've ever purchased. One. Pros, the camera, I have spoken at length on this podcast already about it. It's probably one of the primary reasons that I'm on iOS today, right now, besides loving the operating system. I'm really excited. We didn't talk about it at all because it's not available yet, but I'm really intrigued to try out Apple Pay in the wild once it drops in October, and that was also another major reason for me wanting to get the phone. The longer battery life is excellent. The faster processor really shows itself if you use dictation or Siri a lot. That is really, really nice to have instantaneous feedback and quicker server reaction time. The only con that I can think of is I haven't been able to get a case yet because there aren't that many available and around, and Mophie doesn't have a case yet, which is usually the one that I like to buy. And so I've accidentally run this over twice with my roller skates because of the curved edges. But it's fine.
It's fine. It's taken the roller derby challenge.
It took the roller derby challenge.
We need that on video.
Apple, this never happened. But yeah, I did accidentally roll over my phone yesterday at our skills clinic, and immediately panicked and was like, oh well, there goes my phone, and then I pick it up and it's fine. So I need a case, but other than that, this is the best phone I've ever purchased.
Mophie, send Serenity a case.
Nice.
I need to finish making one first.
And Rene and I are over here like, what are cases?
We have a store full of cases. I love cases.
Cases are great.
I'm not programmed to say that. So for me, the fact that Apple made it bigger and better, those are like technology. Those are specs. So what's more important to me is what that means for us. And one of the nice things we also didn't talk about is when you set up the iPhone, you get a choice. You can use all those new pixels to put more stuff on the phone, or you can use all those pixels to have the phone be bigger, to be scaled larger. So if you're hard of sight, you can actually see the stuff more clearly than ever before. That makes the iPhone more accessible to people. Some people previously just couldn't get an iPhone because they needed a bigger screen, and now they have that. And the better stuff, again, the camera, the CPU, all of that, that only matters if the phone is more usable. And what I like to see with Apple is that every generation, they take the amount of people that can use the iPhone and they push that forward. They push that forward by giving you that bigger screen. They push that forward by giving you new things like the Apple payment system when it works out, or like the extensibility features. And that to me is the real story here is, yes, it's bigger, yes, it's better, but it is also more usable by more people. And that's the thing that I like about this relentless democratization of technology, about making it so that everybody can use and benefit from this stuff. And whether it is specifically accessibility features, which Apple's always done a tremendous job of, or if it's just giving people more opportunity to experience the technology and do things with it, get better photographs from it, get better directions to a place, get better dictation. I am so lazy now, I barely ever type. I use dictation all the time, and that it works better is just so much. I can dictate at least ideas and drafts for articles while I'm driving and I have the idea, and I don't have to worry about panicking and forgetting it by the time I get to a place that's safe to actually type it. And that to me is all incredibly enabling, empowering stuff. So I think that is huge in the Apple Plus column. In the con column, yes, it's bigger, and people with tiny hands who really want to do one-handed typing will want to go for the iPhone 5S. Also, it's still Apple. Apple's still very much in control of their ecosystem. So if you don't like Apple, you can look at Windows Phone. If you really want to customize everything, if you want to flash your own ROMs, there's still Android for you. If you want a giant square phone with a keyboard, there's a new BlackBerry Passport you might want to check out. But I think for most people, most of the time, the iPhone remains the best choice. It's just magnificent hardware, tightly integrated with great software, and continually improving services. And I'm really happy with where Apple's gotten it to. They move faster than I thought they would in a lot of areas. I thought it would take longer to get here, and I'm glad we didn't have to wait. I just spoiled part of my review.
Yeah, it's video review. It's not really a spoiler. It's a precursor.
No one watches this stuff. All right, so I want to thank everybody for joining us. We'll go down the line again. Ali, where can people find you and your camera tests and your social experiments?
iMore.com every day, and I am at iMuggle on all of the things.
Georgia?
You can find me, iMore Vector Isometric Show, and on Twitter at Georgia_. Yeah.
Peter?
On all the things at Flarg, Flargh, and at imore.com.
And joining us again for the first of what assuredly going to be many times, I want to give a warm Mobile Nations and iMore greeting to Serenity Caldwell.
Yay! I can be found on all of the things at Saturn, and hopefully soon you will see my byline on imore.com.
Literally can't wait. Huge fan of your work for a very long period of time.
Aw, shucks. I'm glad to be here.
All right, so we will have an actual review posted for you in the near future. We're slaving away on that as we speak. The iOS 8 review is already up. If you have several days, you can work your way through that. We did that just to buy time for the iPhone review.
It's just an achievement. You get that, you get an achievement after that. So just let us know.
Achievement unlocked. And the show is regularly on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. We're doing it now just because we wanted to get the show done, but you can generally find us then. If you miss the show, you can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/iMoreVideo for the video version, iTunes or RSS for the audio version. I want to thank all of you for joining us. You're a fantastic community, and we're blessed to have you. That's it. iPhone Reviewed. We're out.
Bye.